Today's episode is brought to you by Positively Productive Systems, whose mission is to be the antidote to your stress and to provide compassionate productivity resources and coaching that help you heal and achieve. Be sure to check out both free and paid resources at positivelyproductive.com/resources.
The number one way I see people sabotage is they work on their message and then they have it, it's clear, it works for them and their audience, and then go and hire someone else. Like they spend $25,000 on a mastermind or hire another coach. And the coach is like, no, I really don't like that. I think you should be doing this. And then they go and pursue the other thing. And then that doesn't work because it's not them. It's not positioned well. And then like 6 months later, they come back and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to start using this messaging again. And then things start working again in their business. But it's that shiny object. It's like, no, this message is what your business is at its core. And if you abandon that because a coach tells you to, or some online marketer tells you to, that's never a good thing.
You're listening to the Positively Living podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zawrotny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a coach certified in time and stress management, helping clients make space for what matters most in their lives. Join me each episode and we'll talk about decluttering, stress management, habits, personalized productivity, gratitude, and so much more. I understand the overwhelm of life because I'm a wife, mom to kids and cats, and a former caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. What is an ethical marketing rebellion? It's my way to describe taking a stand against marketing that disrespects consumers and damages businesses. My guest today, Dr. Michelle Mazur, explains both, and neither is what you might expect. Bro marketing isn't bro bashing or only done by bros. It's a phrase she came up with to describe marketing based on scarcity, authority, and coercion. And ethical marketing, the answer to those bullying marketing tactics, might surprise you as well. Michelle Mazur works with brilliant business owners who are shaking things up but having trouble talking about it. She combines the tools of successful social movements with the qualitative research skills she earned in her communication PhD to help them craft their powerful, captivating message. The author of the Word Rebellion and featured in Fast Company, Entrepreneur, and Inc., she knows that speaking about what you do in a clear and captivating way is the key to reaching the people you could help the most and making more money in your business. Our conversation today covers a good bit of marketing and messaging ground, but focuses mostly on how our messaging stems from our business principles, which is the core of ethical marketing. Bro marketing, the nickname Michelle gives to the pushy sales and marketing, is effective. That may be why it continues to be taught to the detriment of consumers and businesses alike. But is it the long-term solution? Michelle says no, and I hardly agree. In the discussion of ethics, we cover values and authenticity. Michelle recommends we get clear on our values, our guiding principles, and if you need support doing that, I encourage you to sign up for the Positively Productive Free Resources Library to access the Core Values Worksheet. That's at positivelyproductive.com/library. I also recommend listening to episode 31, Authenticity in Life and Business with Mallory Schleybaugh. Michelle shares so many gems, not only about ethical marketing and messaging, but about life. I can't wait for you to hear her advice, so let's join her now. Welcome, Michelle Mazur, to the Positively Living podcast. I've been following you and listening to your podcast, Rebel Uprising, and I have to tell you that your Word Rebellion Playbook was a game changer for me, which I'd love to share in this conversation. But first, I'd love to welcome you and have you tell us a bit about who you are, who you help, and what makes you light up.
Yeah, so I am the CEO of Communication Rebel and the author of the Word Rebellion, which is all about creating that one-of-a-kind uncopyable message that grows your business, grows your audience into a movement. So I live in Seattle, Washington with my adoring husband, three rather obsessive felines, as we were just talking about, and my huge collection of Duran Duran memorabilia. So yeah, so that's me. And I work mostly one on one with, how I would describe it is like, I've really niched on a problem and not necessarily an industry. So my people tend to be the type of person who is doing something that's a little different in their industry. They're innovating it in some way. And then that makes it really hard for them to communicate that difference and the value that they're creating in their marketing and sales. So that's really my sweet spot. And literally, I have worked with, yeah, coaches and consultants, but veterinarians, astrologers, attorneys, just, brick and mortar, like spas and fitness studios. So really well across the gamut. As long as they're like innovating in some type of way, they're my client.
I love that. Those who they want to do something different, they've seen something in their industry, most likely that they're like enough already, and they want to change things up, right? At least
Yeah.
that's how I feel about me.
Yeah,
So
they see something that's like, oh, I really don't like how it's done. And I also see my clients, they bring in other skills from different industries and are combining those together to create results for their clients. So yeah, it's a lot of that, I really don't like how the way things are done in my industry, or oh, that piece of advice really makes me roll my eyes. And it's like, how can I change that? What do I bring to the table that can really make a difference and help change the industry?
and you know what I love about this that I hadn't even put together until we were having this conversation today is I help multi-passionate entrepreneurs make
Mm-hmm.
space for what matters. And being multi-passionate, at least in general society, can be tricky because people don't see how everything can play so beautifully together and how those different skills that you bring to the table, or even it's not just the skills sometimes, but like the perceptions, perspectives, the angles, the way, the lens in which you see things, all of that can come together to really change how you can serve in a particular industry, right?
Oh, yes. Because one of my sweet spots is working with multi passionates. Because what I love about multi passionates is they have a lot of tools in their toolbox. Like they're intensely curious, they keep learning, they want to grow and get better. But then they fall into these two traps. It's the like, well, I'm not really an expert. I know a lot about it, but I'm not an expert. So they diminish themselves, or they have all these tools in their toolbox and they don't know how to speak to it in a way that's going to get people's attention and make them excited, because they think the tools are important. And really, I'm like, no, your tools aren't important. It's like how you combine them together to get a specific result or change. So I love multi passionates. And it's interesting because I'm a multi passionate too. And even though I'm definitely an expert in communication, I think how I keep my multi-passionate self alive and thriving is that I am working in all these different industries and I get to learn new things all the time. And that is so much fun.
Yeah, you get the variety. And I think I experienced that as well, working with different clients. And now, of course, talking with so many people on the podcast. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that communication is your jam. And that's the background I came from as well. I was a communications manager and,
Yeah.
an English major. And I do love exploring words and what they mean and how we're using them to
Mm.
understand things better. And I do think that we get tripped up in describing something, and so one of my favorite things is when we're having these conversations, and I've seen it time and time again with my guests, is that I'll say, well, you're talking about decluttering. I just call it decluttering. And,
Mm-hmm.
creating a filter in your life and saying this belongs, this doesn't. That's decluttering. And so we really connect to how so much of what we're doing has the same heart to it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And it's for me, like when I work with a multi passionate, it's always about finding that golden thread. Like, what is it that all of your clients have in common that they're coming for you for? What is the change that they're seeking? Because, like, once you find your golden thread, then you can actually niche on the golden thread instead of being like, I work with accountants, or however we're told to niche in business. So,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah, and that's how I came to the multi-passionate description and realizing I was one myself and how that's so common, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we serve those who are similar to us in some capacity. But I quickly wanted to share with you and thank you for the 3 Word Rebellion Playbook and the difference that it made for me. Actually, you see it everywhere now in what I'm doing, including the podcast and who comes on and how we talk about things. It's sort of an umbrella that I created. And I laughed because I'm like, I was rebellious about the 3 Word Rebellion. So I was trying to think, did I really come up with 3 words or was it close to 3 words? And I'm a questioner. So it was a little bit of everything. But I think it was 2 words that I first came up with that said what I wanted to change about the industry. I came from the organizing industry. I'm in productivity. And to
Mm-hmm.
me, productivity, at least in terms of what I had seen, always meant let's do more, let's do more, let's do more. And I was like, no, let's do less. And so
Mm-hmm.
do less was the first phrase that came up. But then you had these templates to kind of say, okay, now play with that. Now you have the
Yeah.
not this, but that. And so then I was like, do less, live more.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's do less, live more, breathe easier.
Mm.
That's the positively productive
Nice.
mantra. So there you go. And I just wanted to thank you for that because it brought that clarity to me of having all these pieces and all these things that I do and who I serve. And it was like, well, what do I stand for? What am I about? And brought it
Yeah.
all into focus.
Yeah. How do I want to help and change people? Yeah. I think that's the power of a 3 word rebellion. It's really that core message that serves as the anchor for everything you do. Like when I work with clients, like working with them, like the hardest thing to do is come up with their 3 word rebellion,
Yeah.
right? Because it's this very creative process where you're deep diving and you're
Yeah.
unearthing and you're trying to get to the core, the essence of what your business is all about. But once we have that, it's like all the other messaging comes. It's like, all right, now we can create your client journey and figure out what your signature stories are that support that journey you're taking your audience on. And I love that because it is like so clarifying to have something to just like hang your hat on, really, and be like, nope, this is my message. This is the thing that allows me to stay consistent so people know what I'm about.
Yeah. And from a productivity standpoint, this is brilliant because it creates your filter.
Mm-hmm.
So then when you see you're distracted by the bright, shiny objects or the ideas, or you have other entrepreneurs or coaches who are saying, do this, do this, do this, you can say, wait a minute, what am I about? You can go back to that essence, that core, and be like, that doesn't belong. You can start to question things, right?
Yes. And I think that's a really important point because even like I've seen the number one way I see people sabotage is they work on their message. And, whether they read the book or they're hiring me, they work on their message and then they have it, it's clear, it works for them and their audience. And then oh my gosh, so many of my clients then go and hire someone else. Like they spend $25,000 on a mastermind or hire another coach. And the coach is like, no, I really don't like that. I think you should be doing this. And then they go and pursue the other thing. And then that doesn't work because it's not them. It's not positioned well. And then, like 6 months later, they come back and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to start using this messaging again. And then things start working again in their business. But it's that shiny object. It's like, no, this message is like what your business is at its core. And if you abandon that because a coach tells you to, or some online marketer tells you to, that's never a good thing. So always coming back to that, like, okay, this is my core message. This is what I'm all about.
Right. And part of that is values. And that's like the perfect segue to the current talking point that you have that really called me to you that I wanted you to talk about today. And ethical marketing is the term. You've
Mm-hmm.
also been talking about bro marketing. And it cracks me up because for some reason that makes me think of like the bro code from How I Met Your Mother.
Oh. That is hysterical. I haven't thought about that.
Yeah. So just, but it's this idea of there's marketing out there. There's what we perceive as marketing, traditional bro marketing, ethical marketing. Would you please share with us what you see as all of those and how they differ and what's going on with them?
Yeah. So let's start with bro marketing. So, bro marketing is the use of psychological triggers like scarcity, authority, even NLP, neuro linguistic programming. What it does is it shuts down your ability to critically think about a decision and causes you to buy something based on fear, whether that's, straight up fear of missing out. Sometimes it's just like, you've put me in so much pain with your marketing. Here's my money. Please shut up and go away, fear. And, I call it bro marketing. It's a wink and the nod to the patriarchy because I see women online saying like, oh, well, I'm a woman. I'm not a bro marketer. I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. I was like, that has nothing to do because
Right.
I know for a fact you've learned from other bro marketers. It's really that top-down authoritarian way of marketing that says, you know what? I know what's best for you. And you don't need to think about buying this $3,000 course. You should just buy it because it's what's best for you. And yeah, it's very patriarchal. And so bro marketing, the discussion around it is having a moment. I've been joking with one of my friends that I've been anti-bro marketing since 2015. So I've been doing this work and analysis for quite some time. But all of a sudden people are talking about it and being like, oh, wait, maybe this marketing isn't very good. And they're like, well, everybody's talking about it, but nobody has a lot of solutions. So the solution, part of the solution is developing an ethical marketing philosophy. And ethical marketing fascinates me because it really is your own philosophy based on your values and principles. And then that serves as a filter that you put your marketing activities through. Because, people just, especially in online business, just give me the checklist. Tell me what's right. Tell me what's wrong. And it's like, no, I can't. Because I've seen someone who has like an ethical marketing pledge and I'm reading their philosophy and I'm like, this isn't mine. Like, I don't agree with some of your points or why you chose some of these points. And like, why did you choose these? Like, I don't get it. But really realizing that those psychological triggers bro marketing uses, they're actually neutral. And in some cases, they can be very helpful in making a decision. Because we want to get out of indecision, right? So you take your ethical filter, your principles, and you apply it to your marketing. Then from there, you decide, like, do I want to use that countdown timer or not? Or, like, how do I want to establish my authority and my credibility? Because bro marketers have a different way of doing that. But at the end of the day, the real solution to the alternative to bro marketing comes to like, you need to have a better message. People online are using bro marketing because, sorry, I'm going to be ranty for a second.
Rant away.
I know. Well, I just see this, like, I worked in corporate for like 5 or 6 years. Not a great fit for me, but I learned a lot doing market research. And in the online business world, what I see people do is they create an offer and getting word of mouth referrals, and they think, oh, I want to reach more people with this. And they skip to marketing. And because they haven't focused on the middle step, the messaging, they end up using all these bro marketing formulas and tricks and swipes and templates because it's easy and they haven't done their messaging. But when I was working with, companies like Microsoft and General Mills and Burt's Bees, before they rolled out any product, they were researching and message testing, like taking the time and figuring out like, what is our message here before we spend all this money on marketing? And it's always the missing step because those companies do not use bro marketing tactics. And so really that focus goes back to like, this is a different way of messaging in your business. And you've got to take that step before you can go big with your marketing.
It's consistent and authentic messaging. That's really the key, right?
Yeah.
And it's to you and your values or your business's values, which are an extension, right?
And I would say it really respects your potential buyer because, like, one of my core ethical principles for marketing is advocate for your client's agency. So,
Mm,
advocate for agency. And that means like giving them the ability to think about what it is you offer and whether or not it's right for them. And what I see with bro marketing is like, they don't want you to think. They just want you to like whip out your credit card. But really, when we're making big purchasing decisions, we should be thinking. So, how can you advocate for agency? How can you give your people the motivation, the ability to process, the information they need? And, it's fine. Like, if you know what you offer is a perfect fit for someone to say, like, I really believe this will help you.
right. But they still get the choice.
Yeah. But they still get to decide at the end of the day.
Right, exactly. And so I know I've had conversations with people in all realms, all kinds of groups, business to business conversations with fellow women entrepreneurs and with clients and people in marketing, you name it. And there will often be a question posed to me, or even just a statement, really, hardly a question. Convince me you're the right coach for me. I'm like, no, I don't convince. To me,
No.
that feels very like bro marketing. It feels so off because if I do that, what happens when I was convincing, but I'm really not? This has to be your choice.
Yeah. I mean, because then it feels like coercion, right?
Exactly.
And
Hmm.
also, you're outsourcing your thinking to somebody else. Like, you should be able to make that decision for you. Like, I shouldn't have to convince you I'm the right coach for you. There could probably be, I don't know, 10 other people you might just you could work with, you could get great results from. I'm like, you have to trust yourself and think for yourself and make those decisions. Like, I'll give you all the information and then you can decide.
Do you think that some of the pull or maybe the reason that it works somehow is in that outsourcing the thinking idea that when people are in such overwhelm, they just want the solution already. They want the magic bullet, right?
Mhm.
So desirous of just come in and fix it. Do you think some of that like desperation kind of feeds into that?
Yeah, yes, 100%. And when we are processing information, like our brain has one job, and that is to conserve energy. And I read in this book, it's called 6.5 Lessons About Your Brain by Lisa Feldman. She talks about in this book that our brain uses up 30% of our energy a day.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're sitting there and you're in overwhelm, your brain is most likely depleted. And when
Yeah.
we can't think about what is the right solution, what happens is then we rely on those triggers: scarcity, authority, familiarity, liking, reciprocity, all of it to make a
Yeah.
decision. And I mean, honestly, that's how our brain makes decisions every time we go into the grocery store. We don't weigh the pros and cons about yogurt. We just buy the one we really like or buy the one that's on sale, right? So I do think there is that, like, when we're in overwhelm, our brain isn't in a space to actually be thinking. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, just give me the solution. And oh, this sounds good. And it goes away tomorrow. So I'll just buy it. And then
Yeah.
you get in it there and you're like, oh, wait, this isn't how I want to run my business. And I don't like this style of marketing. And oh, this is all about webinars. I don't want to do webinars, and you realize, like, oh, I've made this bad choice because you just wanted to get out of overwhelm and to make the easy decision.
Yeah, I believe it's the prefrontal cortex, right, where we're deciding things. And that metabolically, it's like one of the, it uses the most juice. And
Hmm.
so often, okay, we're depleted. We are tired. We are in overwhelm. I mean, That's most of what, companies are trying to solve right now, right? I mean, it's what I
Yeah.
do as a coach. So it makes sense that that's what's happening with the potential customer or client. And then they are relying on you. So I guess the ethical side of it is that customers and clients can trust that they're in a safe place to make that decision, especially if it's a difficult one for them to make.
Yeah, yeah. And giving them the space because there's all these like salespeople will be like, get the credit card when you're on the phone. And I am not a believer in that because
Yeah,
I want you to make an informed decision about whether or not to work with me.
that's
So
right.
if you say to me, like, we're on a consult call and you're like, hey, can I have a day or two to think about this? I'll be like, yes, absolutely 100%. I know that this is a big decision, a
Yeah.
big investment in your business. So go and think.
Yes. But when they come back to you and they've decided, you're locked in. It's a beautiful relationship.
Yeah, yes.
The
And for
quality is there.
me, yeah. And it's just like, for me, if they decide yes, it's like, okay, great. Let's get started. They're committed to it. They've thought about it. Thinking more about something means you're more committed to it as well. And if they say no, that's fine too. At least they were making the right choice for them.
Exactly. And it's not meant to be, or sometimes it's a not now. It's all the things. But
Mhm.
most importantly, it's a confident decision that's been their choice and your choice in a way too, because as businesses, as coaches, and at least in our case, okay, we don't want people who will be coerced into working with us because it's like going out with somebody because you don't want to be alone. Like that
Mhm.
doesn't, that's no way to build a relationship, right?
Well, and I think about like, when we make a decision based on coercion, manipulation, what we end up seeing is there's buyer's remorse.
Yes.
You take a hit to your brand reputation
Yeah.
because people didn't get the results that were promised and they have a bad feeling about you. There's less loyalty to working with you in the future or referring you. So there's a lot of downsides to this bro marketing that we don't talk about. Like, yes, it is effective. Yes, it works. Yes, if you want a fast money grab, yeah, do it. But if you want clients who speak well of you and who are loyal to your brand and who don't experience buyer's remorse, then we can't rely on bro marketing.
Right. It's in a way, for some reason, this is coming up in my brain. It's almost like a disposable client kind of view of, you know what I mean? Because you're really
Yeah.
throwing it away. It's like, oh, it works or it doesn't. Just come in and buy it. It doesn't matter to me who you are or what you're doing. And if you go, you go. But you're right. You take massive hits to your business and your reputation in so many different ways.
Yeah, because I see that because, there are the, like celebrity coaches, celebrity
Yep.
marketers who have like the big courses, and it's really about volume. They don't
Right.
care about what your business is. And if you say, oh, I'm struggling with this, it's always like, well, it's your fault. It's your mindset. It's something like that where it's like, it's not the course. It's your fault that you don't agree with this.
Gaslighting.
I
It-
know. I know. It's,
Let's bring all the terms into our conversation today that have been big lately.
I know. Yeah. Cause it's like, it can very much lead to gaslighting. But then there's most people who just kind of suffer in silence
Yeah.
and think, like, what's wrong with me?
Right.
Like, why can't I make this work for me? And really, it just isn't aligned with your business or your values or your ethics or how you want to show up.
And that's the word right there, aligned. And this is what you're talking about. So it's not that we have a checklist of this equals ethical marketing, but it is
Mm-mm.
about identifying, this should sound familiar because I say it all the time, about understanding our values and how we tick and how we work best and how we want to show up in the world. When we identify that and identify it for our businesses, then we're in alignment. We express that through our messaging. The clients or
Mm-hmm.
customers who come to us are therefore in alignment. We're creating the right match.
Yeah, and that's really what messaging helps people do is
Yeah.
create that match because it should be like your message should either repel people from you or bring them in because you want the right people, the people who are a match, who really resonate with how your business works, the results that you get, what you stand for,
Yeah.
instead of this mass market appeal.
Exactly. I love that messaging creates the match. Mallory Schleybaugh was on an episode about marketing, but really about authenticity in life and business.
Mhm.
And the way she described it was that it's like a magnet. And so it's that same thing you were saying about repelling and attracting.
Mhm.
So when you're authentic and you have that right messaging and you're expressing exactly what you're about, keeping it real, the right people find you and the people are like, yeah, that's not for me. You filter out the riffraff,
Yeah.
basically.
And what's great, it's like once you have that messaging in place, it doesn't really matter what marketing tactics you use. Like you get to choose like, oh, you want to do webinars? Great. You have the message for your webinar. Oh, you want to do Instagram, LinkedIn? It doesn't matter what the tactics are that you use. They can all be successful because your message is that match and it is aligned and you feel good and excited about sharing it.
I love that. So, given that there isn't necessarily a checklist, and of course, I have to bring up the fact that if you say you're ethical marketing, if you have to say it, what does that mean? What would you leave us with in terms of advice, both from the side of how we choose to be ethical marketers and how, as consumers, we can look for the right things?
Yeah, I think if you're saying you're an ethical marketer and you don't have any ethical principles outlined, like for how do you make your ethical choices? Because I see people say that they're ethical marketers, and then I look deeper and they're doing the same old bro marketing crap.
Hmm.
Like, maybe it's bro marketing light, but it's still very much like relying on psychological triggers and all of that. And I'm like, oh, okay. And usually the people who say they're ethical don't have their principles outlined for how they're filtering and making decisions. So I think that is for a business owner, if you want to say that you're ethical, like being clear, like having a statement, like I have an Instagram highlight that's like ethics. And you can click on that and hear me talk about what my ethics are and how that applies to my business. And then I think for the savvy consumer, it really is looking at like, okay, they're saying they're ethical, but what are they doing? Like, how are they showing up to market? Is
Hmm.
it the same old, same old? Are they doing something different that you haven't really seen anywhere else? Yeah, it's always like watch what they do and not what they say when it's ethical marketing. Cause there's a lot of people who are saying they are ethical. And I'm just like, is your ethic just to make a lot of money? Because that is an ethical principle. Like, I just want
Right.
to make a shit ton of cash, right? Ooh, sorry, I swore.
It's okay.
Okay. I was like, but that is an ethical principle, but
Right.
it's going to lead to a different way of marketing.
So we need to know what your principles are. If you're out to
Yeah.
like open up my wallet and empty it on me, then that is what it is. But I need to also let you know that we're not a match.
Yeah. And I think you can ask the person, but you can also just follow your gut.
Yeah.
Like, is this person's messaging making you feel better about yourself as a human being? Is it making you feel worse? Is it making you feel anxiety or overwhelm? Pay attention to what your gut is saying
Yep.
because that is never wrong. Like we always know what's right or wrong for our business and who's a match and who isn't when we follow that kind of intuition and gut instinct.
And I think that's the same goes for how we're creating our businesses to question. And that's what I support in my clients and in myself to say what feels right, what locks in, what's
Mhm.
authentic. And authenticity does link back to values. You say ethics, I say values. I mean, again, I think we're talking about the same thing. It's those underlying principles that drive us forward. And do they match? And you're right. Our guts can tell us that because you can see inconsistency in action.
Oh, yeah.
When someone says something, but they're doing something else. One of the best bits of life advice I ever got was, when you're interacting with people, especially in the business world, watch their feet, not their mouths.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what action are they taking? Just like what you said, they can say all that they want. And I imagine that some of the most ethical companies are the ones that don't even say we're ethical. They just go ahead and do it, and you see it happening and
Mm-hmm.
you connect to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I did this bro marketing overthrow workshop where I dive deeper into this. And one of the companies, I asked people, like, what companies do you consider to be ethical and have high ethical standards? And, people like Patagonia and Tom's and like all of these companies you would typically think of. And then I showed a slide that had the Parler social media because they say they have the highest ethical standards, but their principles are all around like free speech and privacy. So for them, that's their ethic. Like they want people to be able to say whatever the heck they want on their
Right.
website. And that's the ethic they're going after. I was like, so they say that they have high ethical standards. And everybody in the webinar was like, what? Like, I would not think of that as okay. I'm like, that's
Right.
that's the problem with ethics.
And it's the problem with ethics, but it's also the key to ethics and understanding what's best for you, because it goes right back to the match. Are they stating their principles and are they matching them?
Yeah.
So are they necessarily what your principles are? Not necessarily, so but it's understanding that and creating the match. Wonderful. That feels like a good place for us to wrap up. Is there anything else that I didn't think to ask or that you want to leave as encouragement or parting words on this topic?
Yeah, I would say figure out because so many business owners don't have their values outlined. If you don't understand what your values are, it's hard to create your ethical principles.
Exactly.
But it's like, yeah, figure out what you stand for and then create messaging that puts that out in the world that serves as your filter for all of your marketing and sales activities.
There we go. I love that. All right. Are you ready for a rapid wrap up?
Sure.
Okay. Please fill in the blank for me. The song that always makes me dance is?
Uptown Funk by Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars.
I love that one. I wondered if you're going to come up with Duran Duran, but I'm good with Uptown Funk. So.
Duran Duran, like, I really love the Reflex. Like, that's a good.
Yeah.
And Hungry Like the Wolf, like their peppy songs. I tend to go for more of their darker songs because they have some really dark, of mysterious songs. And those are my favorite. But for dancing, yeah, it's probably more like the Reflex.
Yeah, all right. But Uptown Funk was your first choice. So I'm totally going with that. And that's going to go on the Positively Living podcast Spotify playlist. I think we're probably in volume 2. We're getting multiple volumes of amazing dance songs. So that's fun. All right. Now, how about the quote or mantra that I share all the time is?
Oh, see, this one is so hard for me. Like I've been thinking about like, what is a quote or mantra that I just love? And I'm just going to go with one that I've been saying to myself. I am enough.
I love that. I am enough. And by the way, this links back so beautifully to what you were saying about when you're looking at companies and you see their messaging and you feel it and experience it. How do you feel about yourself when you're experiencing that? And are they making you feel like enough or not enough? That to me is a really important filter, right?
Yes. Yeah. Like, because there's a difference between acknowledging and empathizing with pain points and then kicking someone in the leg who has a broken leg, right? Like there's a huge difference.
Yeah. Okay. And how about the resource book or app that just makes my life easier?
Ooh, there are so many apps. The one that I am loving these days because it makes my life just so much easier is Dubsado, just for client management. Like I can track where everybody is. I can track the pipeline. Like I am all up in Dubsado all the time.
For clients and contracts and invoicing, I would agree. I use it myself. So very good. All right. And last, but definitely not least, what or whom are you grateful for today, Michelle?
I am grateful for my husband, Glenn, because he has this ritual in the morning where he slices up apples and then he'll just leave one at my desk.
Aw,
Yeah, because I'm usually getting ready in the other room, and he just like, if I'm not around to bring it to me, he just like leaves it on my desk for me, which is just kind of super sweet.
It's simple and sweet.
Mhm.
I love it. Okay. And now, speaking of connection and matching, where can listeners find you online? Where do you I know you and I have a lot of fun together on Instagram for sure,
Yeah.
but where can we find you and what's going on with you and connect more?
Yeah. So Instagram is definitely the place to find me. I'm at Dr. Michelle Mazur. If you're listening and you took something away from the show, please slide into my DMs and tell me like what your aha was. I love hearing that. And the other place you can find me is at drmichellemazur.com. You can find out more about the 3-Word Rebellion book and pick up your copy there. And yeah, those are the 2 main places.
Great. I will definitely have that in the show notes linked there. And I want to thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you for shining your light in this world and for sharing it with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Lisa.
Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious and limited, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. If you have feedback, questions, or want to schedule a chat, head to positivelyproductive.com/connect. And if you are looking for any of the resources referenced on the podcast, from books to products to training and more, go to positivelyproductive.com/resources.